Well, we're live. Shalom, good evening. Hello. Hello from Norway, where I'm currently on a tour around various Norwegian cities, giving speeches about the various papers I've written, having a good time. And thank you to Med Israel for Fred, which is with Israel for Peace, for inviting me out here. I'm joined as ever by the glowing and immaculate Shana Meyerson, host of the Yoga of War podcast, and you can find her here on Substack, probably by following a link to this live brief. But she's started running some great stuff. Substack's really growing, so I'd encourage you to go and give her a follow as well.
Thank you. I always love to be described as glowing. It must be the hair. And there he is, coming live from Oslo, the scholar in Scandinavia, Andrew Fox, co-host of the Brink Podcast. And that's Mr. Andrew Fox here on Substack and X. We're going to do rapid fire today, no pun intended, so that Andrew can get to bed and get some sleep for the first time in days. Andrew, start us off.
Over to me. Shana knows I get to be a grumpy bear when I'm tired, so she can see the crow's feet starting to come, so she knows me too well. But yeah, we're talking about the ceasefire today. Ceasefire and the fact that probably as we speak, IDF jets are in the air over Gaza again. It's a tragedy for really everyone concerned, except for Hamas, who are hopefully getting the kicking they deserve after their behaviour over the last week, when I think we saw, how many low points can one organisation have in moral terms? But they've managed to kind of outdo themselves this week with, I don't know if you saw it on X or your other social media platforms, quite unbelievable video. And actually, fair play to the IDF spokesman who got this out really quickly when it was first reported. So Manny Fabian yesterday reported on the story, and they pushed the footage out straight away. But you can see from the air, Hamas digging a hole, taking a body, putting it in the hole, covering it up again, and then when the Red Cross come around the corner, they dig the body up. And not only is it a hostage body, but it's a hostage body they were already supposed to have returned. Just when you think these animals have had enough of being animals, they go and behave like animals again. We shouldn't be surprised. But it is yet another just disgusting example of the human beings that Hamas are.
Yeah, it really is. And when Israel responds, besides the fact that the media is like, Israel alleges that Hamas has made some sort of breach of, maybe something happened, but Israel is definitely breaching the ceasefire, and therefore we know who the bad guy is. That being said, we have gone past yet another Trump 48-hour warning, right? Like these threats never stop. It was a little weird because he said that after 48 hours, they have to start returning hostages. If I remember correctly, all living and dead hostages were supposed to be released. Is it last Monday or 2 Mondays ago now? I've lost track.
It was 72 hours anyway. That's the key point. It was 72 hours from when the ceasefire was signed.
Right, which is 1 or 2 Mondays ago.
Whenever that was.
Right?
Yeah.
But it sort of feels like to me, Andrew, like, when your parents are like, I'm going to give you 48 fat cats. 47, 47 and a half, 47 and 2/3. I mean it now. 47 and 17/18. I know Israel responds, but now that there's no living hostages left in Gaza, I feel like there's no excuse to not go in and finish the job.
Yeah, and again, I've said it many times, what does finishing the job actually look like, though? You've got this organisation that's infested in every element of Gazan life. They're the judiciary, they're the police, they're the bin collectors, they're the health ministry. How do you get rid of all of those? You can't just kill them all. You'd end up having to kill half of Gaza if you did that. And the IDF's options just look limited from where I'm sat. They can go in with the jets, they can spend an awful lot of money on firing missiles and turning goons into paste. which I have no moral objection to. You know, I've from the start of the war, every Hamas member that gets what they deserve and goes to meet their maker, frankly, is a good thing. But strategically, what does that actually achieve? How does that get us any closer to bringing those bodies home? How does it get us any closer to removing Hamas from power? How does it get us any closer to finding any sort of peaceful resolution here? They have to do something. They can't just sit back and let Hamas take the piss, quite frankly. If that's not a Britishism that's confused an American. But, where's the end state here? And that's the real concern for me is like, what next? How does it end? And I still don't think we have a clear answer.
Well, I mean, here's the thing about the clear answer, Andrew, that confuses me, is that the clear answer is actually written out pretty clearly in the 20-point plan that seems to have been just completely thrown out the window. Like, nobody, forget that. I actually wrote down, like, the first point was Gaza will be a de-radicalized terror-free zone that does not pose a threat to its neighbors. That was point number one. And already lost me on number one. Obviously, we lost on number 4, which was that all of the hostages, living and dead, it is stipulated as all the hostages, living and dead, were meant to be released whatever Monday it was, 1 or 2 Mondays ago. And then also the fact that Israel was not beholden to return any of the 2,000 prisoners until, again, aforementioned, all bodies and living hostages were released. The Israel part happened. As always, Israel over-delivers. And who gets blamed for everything? Israel.
Yeah, and, if only somebody had written a long article about why this plan was not going to work. If you go back to to anyone who follows me on Substack rather than Shana, please do follow me. But also on top of that, go back and look at my Hamas yes but no article, where I kind of outline a lot of the flaws in this. And it's I hate being right in situations like this, but this plan was never going to survive past the release of the live hostages. Hamas are doing 2 things. They are doing everything they can to survive, and they're doing everything they can to retain power once the dust settles-ish. I don't think it ever will. I think we're in a Lebanon situation where the IDF will just keep smacking them when they need to. But they're doing everything they can to retain power. And unfortunately, they now have Qatar, who've magnificently maneuvered themselves into a position where they can influence this outcome for their little proxy, for their little brothers in Hamas. And that's now Qatar's fingers are all over this. A resolution becomes incredibly difficult in terms of getting rid of Hamas.
They are and they're not. Israel is edging Qatar and Turkey out to the extent that they can, keeping them out of the strip of governance and anything that's actually going to be of any import to the future of Gaza. But okay, I'm going to ask a question. I know your answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I have to. I always have to ask a Trump question. I always know what the answer is. But is Trump, like, honestly and truly that naive to think that this was going to be a real peace? So Andrew, I know your answer. So I think I know your answer. But in my estimable opinion, and we know how estimable my opinions are, I think that, first of all, this whole entire thing was performative. Like, beyond getting the hostages home, I don't think that Bibi or Trump really thought that phase 2 was ever going to happen. But they had to lay it out for our frenemies, who are really just enemies pretending to be friends. They're not even frenemies, i.e. Qatar, and
Turkey.
And Turkey. And honestly, the list goes on, but I digress. But I think they always assumed we would never get to phase 2, but more than anything, they wanted to get the live hostages out. Now, I do have to insert here, I am diehard about getting these last 13 hostages home. The murdered hostages have to come home. But I would be lying if I didn't say that, given the choice of 20 live hostages or 20 dead hostages, that I would have chosen the murdered ones. So I'm wondering what you think. I think that even Bibi and Trump, though they never indicated anyway, were a little surprised that all 20 of the living hostages came home. I thought I knew something was going to come through, but I thought they would hold on to at least one. So I do consider that to be like wonder of wonders, miracles of miracle. If anybody wants to hire me as a singer, I don't actually sing, but it is a karaoke bar today, I guess.
Good. Well, that's good to know. I wish you'd have warned me in advance.
We could have sang a duet.
I could have found some way to use this empty bottle to just blow my eardrums out. But no, look, actually, I agree with you. I don't think Trump's stupid. I think all he cared about was his peace deal, so he could say, "Look what I did. Look what I did." I think he does care about the hostages as well, and I think getting them home did matter to the guy. I don't think he's insincere in that. But look. Like, certainly Bibi's not stupid. He's many things, but stupid he isn't. And if humble old me sat here can spot that a mile off, I'm 100% certain that the Israelis did too. But again, the killer question is, I just can't get past this one question: is what next?
Yeah.
Like, where do you go? And look, I was asked this question kind of in a roundabout way at the speech I gave tonight, and I said, I think my conclusion was, look, Israel's borders are secure. 7th of October ain't going to happen anytime soon. And beyond that, like, you've got so little agency when it comes to what happens next. You look at Palestinian opinion polling, you look at Palestinianism as an idea, the river to the sea idea, that certainly hasn't gone away. You look at Gaza and Telegram groups where ordinary civilians are talking like they hate Hamas, but they've got absolutely zero love for Israel after 2 years of war. So they're not about to elect a government or work with Fatah or support a transitional authority that suddenly plays nice with Israel. That's not on the cards. So you can just see the options just declining as you go through them. And my take is, if life, hostages home, Israel's borders secure, that's probably as good as it gets, quite frankly. That's certainly one better than I thought they'd end up achieving in terms of getting the hostages home.
I think it is, Andrew, but honestly, like, it as somebody who's been in this war for decades, I could tell you that what's most telling is about what you said when you said for at least a few years. And that's pretty much the Hamas playbook. And that was the point of this war. That was the point from day one, that this needs to be the last Hamas war. So here's, I mean, in my vast military prowess, to answer your question of what comes next.
General Meyerson reporting.
So obviously we've got the yellow line, right? And then so inside right now we've got let's just put it honestly, Gaza, Hamas is in control. Outside of the yellow line, Israel is in control. However, let us remind you, there are no living hostages left, which means that theoretically, at least, there's nothing to hold back Israel from going full throttle into Gaza City, which I know I've always supported and you've always opposed, but without any threat of killing hostages, they could basically tighten that noose. And another thing is this, that because, I mean, the weirdest part of this whole plan to me, Andrew, was the thing about the peace plan will continue even if Hamas doesn't agree or comply. And that was just such a weird thing. But what I'm realizing now is this Disneyland concept of you in now the pieces are starting to fall into place. If aid is only going to go beyond the yellow line, right, to Israeli-controlled territories, right? And you build whatever, Mirror Gaza, whatever it is, call it what you want, like Disneyland. And then inside, you sort of trap, not trap is the wrong word, because my whole point was about how things are falling into place. You have the people who are under Hamas control. And it's like, I could tell you growing up literally in the shadow of Disneyland, it's always like, hey, mom, hey, dad, I want to go there. Every day you wake up and go, can I skip school today and go to Disneyland? Now, here's where the pieces fall into place. Remember that there's that other stipulation that says that there will be free movement, and that they can go, that the anybody in Gaza who wants to leave Gaza, will have freedom of movement to do so. And so when you see Disneyland and the kids are like, mommy, take me to Disneyland, that it could just be feet away. And that way we move where the Hamas-controlled areas stay in a state of rubble and complete destruction, wherein prosperity abounds around.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you that. It's plausible. It's plausible. I think it's expensive and difficult, but yeah, that's not the worst idea in the world. Torturous Disneyland analogy aside.
You love my analogies. I know you're still recovering from the goat thing.
But yeah, I mean, I still think it doesn't give us a long-term answer to Palestinianism and the idea that Israel must be destroyed and doesn't sort Judea and Samaria, West Bank out. But as ideas go, it's better than no idea. And there's certainly strides forward that can be made in that space. So, hey, let's do it. Let's sign up to it.
Okay. I actually, when it comes to Judea and Samaria, that's another thing. I believe 100% it's going to happen. I believe now is not the time because we don't need to be upsetting the tenuous, coalition that we've gotten together here. But I believe that before Trump leaves office, just like he did with the Golan, he will recognize the West Bank or Judea and Samaria. I can't believe I just said that.
I know. Does that mean does that mean your card gets revoked? You're not allowed to go to synagogue now. Are you in trouble?
No, they'll let me in because I wear this.
Will the elders of Zion send you a stiff letter?
Well, you know what? I have so many vials of Christian baby blood in my refrigerator that I can always, no matter what, run.
Oh, well, those mats aren't going to make themselves, are they? So
no. So I could continue all night. I know you can't continue all night, but I could tell you're really, really enjoying yourself over there. So what say you? And continue?
We can do another 10 minutes. Let's do another 10 minutes.
Okay. Give me something to chew on, or I could give you some bar food from here.
No, go on, throw me some peanuts.
Okay. I was going to actually go back to what you said before about like the whack-a-mole, but maybe it's mole when you live in LA. But this whack-a-mole strategy, that the way I see it right now, Israel or whatever is doing their usual stunt strategy, whatever it is, of making molehills out of mountains, meaning that no matter how big the breach is, Israel is like, okay, we'll take this, okay, we'll respond to that one, but then we'll go back to ceasefire. Oh, we'll accept this. So once again, Hamas is pushing the envelope, the Gaza envelope. I just came up with that just now. Amazing. Come on, that was good. But Israel has to remember my how Hegseth definitely read my Substack about the Department of War. I'm afraid that Bibi didn't, or Israel Katz or whatever. It's time for Israel to change their strategy, because honestly, I think that with this game of whack-a-mole, it's a matter of time before Trump gives Israel the go-ahead. I mean, we're on 47 and 20 seconds now. But he's gonna give them the approval to whack the whole damn molehill.
Yeah, I think Israel's forbearance has simply been because they want to get those remaining bodies back. And I think it's that simple. I don't think it's that they're being weak or it's that they're being indecisive. I think they just literally know that this is probably not the last window, but it's kind of the last but one, maybe last but two windows where this is actually going to happen. And I think quite rightly they've gone into this with an approach of hopefulness where, look, there's not going to be a long-term peace right now. Phase 2, if it kicks in, is going to be incredibly complicated and take a very long period of time. But actually, there is still a hope. And I think it's to Israel's credit that they've been as patient as they have with the number of breaches that Hamas have made of that deal. And the number of very calculatedly cruel breaches as well. Giving back half bodies, then another half body, giving back a fake body, or rather a non-hostage body, claiming it was a hostage. these are all very deliberate provocations by Hamas, and they've been trying everything they can to get Israel to go gangbusters again, because they know on the international stage, and that's probably the flaw in the plan you just articulated a minute or two ago, is that actually the condemnation is exactly what Hamas wants.
Yeah.
And if Israel do go full throttle once more, then that isolation is going to deepen and worsen. The narrative is already set that it's Israel who's broken the ceasefire. We know that's bullshit, but you can't argue with narratives these days, unfortunately, and God knows I've been trying to for 2 years. So, Hamas can see, I think, lots of upsides in trying to get Israel to go full throttle. And Israel has been remarkably restrained in not doing so because they know, A, they want the hostages back, and B, it's a matter of it being strategically counterintuitive because they'll start getting slammed on the diplomatic front. So it's a really tricky situation. And as I've said 1,000 times, there's just never an easy answer in the Middle East, and never a straightforward solution, never a simple solution. And even when you think you found a solution to the really complex problem, there's always another problem around the bend. If you Google wicked problem, that's the definition of the Middle East.
Yeah. At the same time, I mean, we've discussed this many times before, so we don't have to go down this goat hole. But I don't believe that Israel should be forced to commit suicide just because the world wants to kill them. So, unfortunately, this is a narrative that Israel will not win. People think that what's going on right now, I'm talking about in the pro-Israel community, that what's going on now is somehow new. It's not new. It's just that social media didn't used to have bots, and it didn't used to have these amplifiers. But I just want to say something, Andrew, about what you said about being like the last one or two chances to get the dead bodies home. A few things. First of all, Israel maintains 53%. And again, as previously mentioned, if they go in full throttle, then they will have control over a broader area to excavate. I don't have a better word. Second of all, we've heard many times that this is like the last chance at a hostage deal. We've heard with live hostages, but that's something that's been on repeat, simply because nobody knows. We're dealing with sadists. We're dealing with savages. And unless Qatar decides that it's going to happen, it's not going to happen. But I do want to say also, you say that we have one or two more chances. Hamas said today, because Israel dared to respond to the fact that that Hamas returned an arm of an already, so he has a name, of course, so is Ophir, I know I'm going to say this wrong, Sarfati, that his family has to open his grave for the third time because of their sadomasochism. It's sick shit. But in response to Israel saying, hey, you crossed the line again, we're going to respond. Hamas said today they're not returning any more bodies. So I don't know where this chance is, Andrew, unless we apply pressure.
I mean, that might have been released whilst I was speaking in a dinner, because I hadn't seen that. But yeah, well, hey.
Yeah, it's I think that for me, Andrew, the real problem, and really, it will be a big win for Hamas, but in a very subtle way, would be the fact that people are so ecstatic about everyone who's alive is now home, that over time, just like with Hadar Golden, who's been in there now since 2014 for 11 years, that it's not that they didn't know he was there. It's not that Israel didn't want him back, but he only came back in the spotlight when these other 251 hostages were taken. So I've been thinking all the time, I'm like, okay, if it's another 10 years before these bodies come home, do I wear this for 10 years? And everyone is sort of like, yeah, well, maybe it's okay to take off the bracelet. Maybe it's okay to take off the pin. And Andrew, my heart just breaks for these families. Last night, 13 families were taken to speak to the IDF to prepare them that a body was coming home. It was like a lottery that one family was gonna win, and instead they all lost. And we, as not just a nation, not just Am Yisrael, but of decent human beings, cannot forget the hostages that have already been murdered. We need to get them home for a dignified and respectful burial. Imagine if that were your great grandfather. There are two men who were 85 years old when they were abducted and murdered. 85 years old. Or your parent, or your son, or your brother, or your best friend, or your nephew. These people have got to come home.
And I think that's a cultural thing. Like if it were me, I wouldn't want to risk another life to get them home. I'd be relatively content to write them off and just say a prayer. That's me.
Really? If it were your son?
Yeah, I think that's a cultural piece. Yeah, to have the body and all that sort of stuff. I think it's a Jewish cultural thing because it certainly makes literally no sense to me personally. But hey, all cultures welcome. There's a couple of comments that I think we should maybe address.
How do you see comments? Because all I can see is 2 lines of a comment. I can't even like right now.
If you scroll your finger at the bottom of it, and you can scroll up and down.
I have 2 lines at a time. Do you have 2 lines at a time?
I've got maybe 5 or 6 lines, but
okay.
I can just scroll. So I can see Judith, who says she has to give Israel and Bibi credit for patience. Anyone who believes Hamas or most Palestinians will ever accept Israel's existence is whistling Dixie. Which one's Dixie? How does that go? That's that one, the old Civil War one. Yeah, okay. So
I think that's it. I don't know.
Okay.
But actually, that reminds me, Andrew, before you said you don't think Bibi's stupid. I know Bibi isn't stupid. Bibi is brilliant. And I think that every time that he said, oh, yeah, we have peace. This is going to be peace. I think he's like, oh, yeah. He didn't make this face. Yeah. But that's the face he had under.
Maybe he should make that face. Maybe you should go and give him coaching on how to make a sardonic face. Stephen Corner was saying, as a Trump supporter, I'm calling out this phony resolution. As long as the US embraces Qatar and Turkey, there will not be any movement forward, period. Andrew, can you please comment? Yeah, no, I agree. I think embracing or bribing, more accurately, Qatar and Turkey did get the live hostages home. And that's really important. And, that's where Shana and I do agree, is that shifting heaven and earth to get the live hostages home was definitely the way forward. But unfortunately, having to make that bribe means you then have to live with the repercussions of having made that bribe, which is a strengthened Turkey, a strengthened Qatar, and a Hamas who kind of feel like they've done enough and they don't really need to do any more because they're still getting what they want either way. So it does make the situation both partly resolved and a lot more complicated. So hopefully that kind of answers that comment. But Shana, feel free to chip in, my friend.
I just think that when it comes to Qatar, one thing that my strategy always when answering questions that accuse Israel of everything is just flip the story and ask it about Hamas. And you're like, oh, so I just want to say that the flip side of how Trump is kowtowing to Qatar is the fact that he also will hold those things over his head. I mean, we always do have the option to pull the base out of Qatar, to rip up the loophole agreement that we made with them, to not allow them to come to Idaho to train. So I mean,
except that they've got you over a barrel because of their financial investments. That if they then pull out, puts the US in a bind. So there's kind of a bit of a mutual defense pact with Qatar at this point, which is doubly complicated.
Well, all we have to do is raise the tariffs on Britain, and that will make up for the Qatari money. 2,000% tariffs on Britain.
Oh, well, all our money's Qatari anyway, so,
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it's pretty interesting how this tiny little country has come to take over the entire world purely for financial.
Muslim Brotherhood. That's what they do.
It's Muslim Brotherhood, but it's Qatar specifically, meaning the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt doesn't own the world. The Muslim Brotherhood in, so there's a lot of, when I was talking to Dalia Ziada on my show about, Marco Rubio wants to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. And throughout the Middle East, it is designated as a terrorist organization in a lot of nations. But what she said is you actually can't designate the Muslim Brotherhood because it's so big and it's an umbrella organization of many, many smaller organizations, and that it wouldn't, to her, she said it would be impossible. I'm like, well, how's it possible in the other countries? Which is why I say that even if Qatar is controlled by or the head of the Brotherhood of Muslims, they are still just one country. It's not fungible money. That money is Qatari money. It's not Irani money. It's not Turkey money. It's not Hamas money. It is Qatari money that is controlling the world and the world's narrative right now.
Yeah, I agree. And, Jeremy was like, do you both agree that Qatar and Turkey should not be involved in the new Palestine 100%? I think Shana's nodding away as well. But, keeping that money out is going to be really tricky because it's a big, big pot of cash that will look very, very attractive.
But again, that comes back to Gaza Disneyland. So if money is not allowed to go into the Hamas-controlled areas, but people want to give billions of dollars to build up the prosperity of what we want to call it, the yellow zone, it probably has a name.
Money will have to be allowed to go in, or people will starve to death. It's as simple as that. So you can't just cut off an area and not let aid in. It's completely illegal.
Aid and money are two different things.
Oh no, they're not. Look at cash voucher assistance. I've got a paper on this coming out imminently. And it's how the UN and NGOs effectively intentionally or blindly funnel money to insurgent groupings. So CVA is something I would recommend that you Google in the meantime.
Okay.
I'm not gonna kind of ruin my paper's surprise right now on the podcast, but we can definitely talk about it when it comes out.
Okay.
But CVA is an absolute racket, and it's a way that UN and NGOs get money to terrorist groups by accident. And right, I can hear my voice going, and it's 20 to midnight here, and I have to go and give another fabulous speech tomorrow to the good people of Kristiansand. So I think we should probably draw stumps there, if that works for you, Shana.
Always fabulous, Andrew. I hope that you have a well-deserved and good night's sleep. Always a pleasure to meet you at the bar. That is no longer a bar, but
it's a metaphorical bar, and that's the important thing. Thank you, Stephen, as well. And look, if you do watch this on a later time on YouTube or one of the other podcast sites, then please do like, subscribe, share it. If you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify, give us 5 stars, all that good stuff. We are very grateful for you joining us and for all the support you give this little chat that we do weekly.
Yes. And leave comments. We love hearing your thoughts, and it always adds to the discussion. Who knows? We might wind up discussing one day.
Marvelous. Right. See you next time. Cheers.
L'chaim. I'll see you next week.